The Gospel of Mary Magdalene, chapter 10. Today we step into the final portion of Mary's preserved vision, chapter 10, and it's nothing short of a sacred mystery. So you know by now that we don't hold this gospel whole in our hands today. It arrives to us in fragments, like sunlight through shattered glass. Chapters 1 through 6 are gone. Chapters 11 through 14, destroyed, purposefully, cut from history by time, by an empire, a church, or by fear. But what remains, chapters 7 through 10 and 15 through 17, still carries the pulse of revelation. It still breathes. It still speaks. And we have walked with Mary as she shared Christ's words, stood her ground in the face of rejection, and received defense from Levi. But now, in chapter 10, we are taken back into her vision. This isn't theology. It's not an encounter. It's a true holy ground. And here is what she says. And Mary answered and said, "What is hidden from you, I will proclaim to you." Let's stop right there. Now, listen to what she said. She didn't say, "What is mine?" She said, "What is hidden?" Now, Mary is not hoarding the truth. She's revealing the unseen. She's unsealing what was veiled. She speaks as someone who has stood in a thin place between heaven and earth and has returned with fire on her tongue. She says, "I saw the Lord in a vision, and I said to him, 'Lord, I saw you today in a vision.'" Now, that alone is enough to pause the heart, isn't it? I mean, she didn't just remember Jesus. She didn't just dream of him. She saw him. In the quiet chambers of her spirit, he appeared. Not bound by walls or time. Not a memory. No. This was a presence. A now. And he answered her, "Blessed are you that you did not waver at the sight of me. For where the mind is, there is the treasure." Now imagine that. To see the risen Lord, glorious, transfigured, radiant, and not flinch, not shrink back or tremble with fear. He honors her for this. And he says, "You didn't waver," which means most probably would have. Most of us do. We hesitate, we second guess the sacred. We see beauty and think we're unworthy. We feel we feel the presence of the divine and question if it's real. How many have done that? But Mary, she stood in it. She saw him and stayed present. For where the mind is, there is the treasure. This line is everything. It's a key to the mystery. Because Jesus is pointing to the spiritual mind. Not just our thoughts, but the deeper awareness, the inner sanctuary, where perception becomes communion. What you fix your mind upon becomes what your treasure is. Or as my grandpa used to say, you can always tell everything you want to know about a man by meeting his family, because a man will put his time and his money where his heart is. And it's true. What you fix your mind upon becomes what you treasure. And Mary's mind wasn't lost in fear. It wasn't tethered to doubt. Her focus Her treasure was Christ. And then she dares to ask a question that almost feels forbidden. She says, Lord, when someone sees a vision, is it through the soul or through the spirit? Now, this is no small question because she's reaching into the nature of revelation itself. She's asking, where does divine sight happen? Which part of us touches God? And the answer? Well, he says, it's neither through the soul nor through the spirit, but the mind that sees the vision. It is between the two, between the soul and the spirit, and it is that which sees the vision. Then, boom, right there, the manuscript breaks. The rest of Christ's answer, gone. Can you imagine what he said? Can you imagine what he would have revealed to us? But maybe that's because the rest must be discovered and not read. I don't believe that we can't have an answer. The true answer has to come from within, from us, right? Because the mind Christ speaks of is not the thinking mind. It is not logic, and it's not calculation. It's nous. It's the mind of the heart, the place where heaven whispers and the soul listens. It is the middle place, the sacred between soul and spirit, between reason and revelation, between the seen and the unseen. And it is there that visions are born. Now, Mary didn't just have a spiritual experience here. She accessed the deeper chamber where spirit and soul meet and truth becomes visible. You have that place too, within you. But, we drowned it out with noise, distraction. Maybe you've longed to hear God, to feel him, to see something real, not just ritual, not just rules, but presence. And Mary shows us. It's not about striving, it's about stillness. Where the mind is, there is the treasure. So, where has your mind been lately? What have you fixed your inner gaze upon? Fear, shame, distraction, maybe control? Or could you turn that gaze inward toward that sacred space between soul and spirit and wait there? Because that's where the vision comes. And when it does, don't waver. Jesus, you speak in the silence. You appear in the in-between places. You honor the ones who do not flinch when you draw near. Teach me to quiet the noise. Teach me to center my mind on the treasure of your presence. Let me dwell in the place between, where the soul reaches upward and the spirit bends low. Let me ask bold questions like Mary. Let me see holy things. And when I do, let me not waver. Amen. Now, the chapter ends mid-sentence, and it's a shame. The vision is interrupted, the teaching is cut off. But maybe that's the point. The more I think about this, maybe God isn't finished speaking. Maybe the next line of the vision is waiting to be written in your life. Mary saw the Lord, and he praised her, not for her knowledge, not for her perfection, but for her courage to see and stay. And you are invited into the same. So, tomorrow, we open up the manuscript again and step forward into chapter 15, where the gospel returns and the journey continues. Deeper, wilder, and even more urgent. But tonight, let your mind rest where your treasure is. And if you're quiet enough, you might just hear him whisper in the place between. God bless you, my friends.